All right, we are recording for our famous photographer part 3. So again, after we did our research on our photographer, what we want to do is emulate what they shoot and then their look, right, their style. And so you want to shoot 8 photos, right, trying to capture similar subject matter to what your photographer shot. So if they shot food photography, you're going to be shooting pictures of food, or what the closest thing you can shoot to what your photographer shoots. So it depends on your access at home, you know, what you have available to you, but really think about like, how can I get as close to possible to what my photographer was shooting subject-wise. Then you're going to edit 5 of those photos to kind of match their style. And so you should have 8 shot original, 5 edited for 13 total photos you would upload and turn in either on a Google Slide or Doc. This is due Tuesday, end of day, for 50 points. Grading for an A, students shoot the 8 photos of similar subjects to their photographer. Trying to go for a variety of those subjects is better. And edit 5 photos to look like their photographer's style. So you're trying to match kind of the look and feel of their photos on 5 of them. The photos are uploaded in the Google Slide or Doc or Flickr album and are organized. So you put them in order. You can put the before and after side by side for your edits. I would recommend having 1 to 2 examples of your photographer's photos that you tried to emulate. So maybe you have a photo, like some photographers shoot a wide variety of things. And so maybe you just wanted to focus on like this type of subject. So maybe show an example of your photographer's photos of like, this is the subject matter I was trying to go for. And then maybe a second example of like the editing look you were going for. And so like, yeah, you know, my photographer did different looks, but you know, this is the one look I was trying to copy. So for example, Jeremy Cohort, you know, he shoots a wide variety of different looks. Some are studio, some are outdoors, some have very interesting lighting and projection. He likes to use projectors a lot, you know, so some of those might be more complicated, but he does have some simple, you know, style portraits that are, you know, easier to copy and to emulate or to shoot, you know. So I would try to think of like, out of my photographer's work, what's like one example of a photo that I would want to try to copy the subject matter. Maybe they shoot different types of subjects. He mostly shoots kind of portraits and fashion, right? So if I was doing more portrait, I'd find one of his portraits and save that. And then what's one of the looks that I could actually, you know, copy and emulate with my editing? Like I'd probably have a hard time shooting or editing something like this at home, you know, if I was in your shoes. But, you know, might be able to get closer to, let's see, you know, like a more, you know, like a fashion shot of a friend or family at home, right? Like something like this with window light is definitely more, you know, approachable. So I'd save one of these, right? So just kind of think about what you have access to, what do you have available? Do you have people you could photograph or friends? If, you know, your parents are okay with you shooting, they can wear masks and you can wear masks too. You can shoot outside at a distance, you know, however you want to make it work. But really think like, you know, what do I have access to? What do I have available? And can I shoot similar subjects? And then which of their photos should I copy their style, right? Their look and feel of their photo. Does that make sense? All right. And again, if you have any questions, just let me know. So what I did want to share was the film emulator here. So if you click on it, it'll take you to this film emulator. I'll put the link in the chat if you want to check it out. But it is a free online editor, and it's all about for film looks. So if your photographer was shooting basically like 2000 and older, like 1990s, 80s, 70s, 60s, right? They were shooting on film. Digital photography really didn't come into existence until about mid to late 2000s, where it was widely used, and photographers actually kind of trusted it, the quality of it. Otherwise, they were pretty much shooting film until about mid 2000s. And so what we can do is, how you use it is just click on Open File. So I'm just going to select a photo, open it up. And so what you can do is on this bar where it says film, you can choose different types of films. So there's black and white films of lots of different types. So some are older, some are newer. There's infrared looks, all different types of, film looks. Instant consumer and instant pro. Instant is like Polaroid, where you take a photo and it prints out instantly. So that was kind of like 70s, 80s, and some people still use them today, but those kind of when they were more popular. So instant consumer was like the consumer level quality, and then the instant pro was professional quality instant film. Lots of different types you could check out. There's like warm and cool ones too. It's kind of cool. 690 cool. And then negative means negative film. So negative film was developed around the 1980s and was widely used in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. People still use it today, negative film. And so negative color film, right? We got different types of negative color film. So sometimes your photographer says like, oh, they use a certain type. And a lot of these are emulations of like Fujifilm and different types of film. There's newer negative film. So this would be like your 90s to 2000s type films. Portrait 800. Those are famous ones. Max 3200. That's a newer black and white negative film. Negative old. So these are kind of the first ones that kind of came out. Were maybe like, early 80s, mid 80s, or different types of older negative films. Slide film. So slide film was the clear, they called it Chrome 2. It's like a clear, you can actually see through it and project it in a projector. That is your color slide film. Color slides came out in the 50s and were really big in use in the 50s, 60s, 70s. People still shoot with them today. Some people prefer shooting on slide film. Lots of different types of slide films out there. And then they have some like, picture effects where they got different types of looks. So this is like an 1870 kind of sepia look, Anatype. It's a sepia. They got infrared looks, black and white looks. There's also these various, so we got like 60s faded looks. We got expired film, really faded. So lots of different looks you can test out. It's just kind of fun to play with it, kind of see solarized color. So there's kind of different solarized color looks. Some of your photographers did solarized photos, right? So lots of different stuff to play with. So once you kind of figure out, I'm just going to do a black and white film. So let's try one of these. Looks good. And so what you're going to do is you can also adjust the grains. So depending on when your photographer shot, like the 1800s to early 1900s had bigger grain. The better films had smaller and less noticeable grain. So if it was an older photographer, you can increase the grain amount and you'll see it kind of rough up. That would be like an older. You can add vignettes. Light leaks were for their kind of newer processes where people intentionally let the film get exposed and leak into the camera, and they have like different kind of color leaks on it. That doesn't really work for the older stuff. You can adjust the brightness, contrast. So some photographers like older would be lower, kind of flatter contrast, and newer would be a little bit more high contrast. Depending on your photographer's look, you can adjust the contrast. And then temperature and vibrance would be if I was adjusting the color temperature, like warm to cool, and then the vibrance of the colors on a color film. So once you have it the way you want, just click download, and then it'll apply that film and then those settings onto your photo, and then download it to your computer. So Film Emulator is kind of fun for older looks. And then, I save mine to my desktop. So there we go. There's our very vintage, grainy look. This here. There we go. So another option, if you're more familiar with Photopea and Pixlr, I'm going to show those. So let's go to Pixlr first. Pixlr.com. And then I would use Pixlr X for this one because it gives you more effects in a grain slider in Pixlr X. I'm just going to open up a photo. Let's do... I can do this one. All right, so first I'm going to rotate it so it's correctly oriented. And so on these different tools on the left, I'm going to go to adjust and filter. So I could do this manually. I could go to color and like drop down my saturation to make it black and white. Or I can go into effects and we got some different effects. If I click on too old, there's a variety of different, older looks. Some have like a sepia look, like an aged look, some black and white looks, right? Like the kind of high contrast Porto one looks kind of cool. Then if I go to adjust and filter, I can obviously, click on these different tabs. So maybe I want to make it a bit brighter, like so. There we go. So I'm going to adjust the brightness, exposure, and I can play with the contrast. Do I want it to look flatter or more contrasty, right? So that kind of depends on your photographer. Then if you keep going down, if you click on details, you can add grain. So just like before, the older the photo, the more grain you would add. The newer the photo, the less grain. So it's kind of something to think about, when they were shooting, adding grain, and then hit apply. And so that'll add it onto it. And there are more effects, so you can do these kind of instant looks. So I'm just going to undo a couple steps. One sec. There we go. Oh, let's do that. There we go. So let's just go back to effects, and then let's apply it to the color photo. Let's do the in-stage one. So these are like instant film camera looks. Lots of different kind of color tints and fades you could do. There's also some retro ones you can click on. So once you kind of apply one, you can keep applying onto it. I'm just going to undo one step. There we go. And let's try this effect again. Let's go to retro. Here we go. So I got different kind of retro looks that you can apply to your photo. And then once you're finished, hit save. And then make sure it's a JPEG. I would call it like edit or V2, aperture quality up, and then hit download, and it'll save it to your computer. So that's our Pixlr edit. I can open that up. There you go. So now let's use Photo P. So Photo P is very similar to Photoshop. So we got different tools here. We got image adjustments up here, and we also got filters. So I'm just gonna go File, Open, and open up a photo. So let's do a photo of my dog. There she is. All right, so if I wanted a black and white look, I would just go to Image, Adjustments, and then black and white. So the cool thing about this one is you can adjust the color brightness. So if I had reds, I can darken them or lighten them depending on that look I want to go. So you can go into each color and adjust that. Maybe I want darker greens, So something like that looks cool, and then hit OK. And then if I wanted to add grain, I'm just going to go to Layer and duplicate my layer. So I can basically apply grain to a layer above. And then I'm just going to go into Filter and then Filter Gallery. Once you open the filter gallery, it does go kind of slow, so just be patient with Photo P. It is a free program running through your browser. So you'll see on the right, we got different filters we can apply. So if you go down to Texture, click on Grain. So you'll see 100% zoomed in preview here. So you can adjust the intensity, how strong, and then the contrast, like how contrasty of that. And you can also adjust the grain typed. So you got regular, soft, sprinkles, clumped, contrasting, large, stippled, horizontal, vertical, speckled. So you can try different ones. So some have softer grains, some have more, clumped grain. So I'm just going to click on that and give it a second to apply it. So just be patient with Photo P, but it will do it. Just take some time. Once I'm done, I'm just going to hit OK and then apply that filter to my layer. It's just processing that out. There we go. So you can see in my history, I made it black and white, copied my layer, added my grain filter. And then once I'm done applying that, I can go layer and then flatten image to basically combine those layers together. And then I can export that. So I'm just going to go to export as, select JPEG, and let's save it out. So I'm going to bring my quality up and hit save. And I'll download that to my computer. You will notice when it applies the grain filter, it is colored a little bit. So if you want to make it black and white again, just go to image adjustments, black and white, and then just hit that again, and I'll make that grain black and white. So I'm just going to save that again. So export JPEG and save. There we go. So I had to use that newer one. And again, I would recommend to title these, which ones you're before and after, which ones you edit. Like you want to put V2 or V3 or edit. That just kind of helps to organize, right? So for Photoshop Express, I don't think Ledison has showed up, right? Oh, he is here. There we go. Ledison's here. So make sure, again, if you come in late, leave a comment in the chat so I don't miss you and mark you absent. There we go. So if I was editing this on Photoshop Express, I'm just going to open up the app. And then let's open up a photo. So this morning, I took a photo in the parking lot. The sun was really cool. Got the nice light and got the solar panels lit in our north parking lot at school. And so what I'm going to do is show you a couple different methods you can do in Photoshop Express. So the first option is under looks. You got a wide variety of different looks. And so there's like matte looks that are kind of like faded looks. We got some black and white looks. And so if you give it a second and let these load, it'll start to preview each of these. So we got faded black and white look. We got a 60s really grainy look, high contrast look, infrared look. And again, you can adjust the amount of that filter with this slider. So maybe we like that. So that's a cool look. I'm just going to go back to the original. So I'm just going to swipe back and select normal, and I'll undo that. So what I'm going to do is show adjustments and how we can kind of fine tune it. Again, you can close that off. So again, you can just exposure, contrast, all that good stuff. So I'm just going to go over to saturation, and I'm going to desaturate it and make it black and white. Then I can adjust a couple things. So under grain, we got a grain slider, so I can increase the amount of grain. Let's see, there we go. So add some grain to my photo. There we go. And then I can play with the fade. So if I have kind of more low contrast, I can kind of, come on, dude. It's hard to do this backwards. Like kind of flatten it out if I want to, depending on, again, your photographer's look. And so again, you can do those looks. You can obviously, keep going here. You could add a vignette if you wanted to, and then really finish it. Once you're done, just hit that little output button here, and then save it to your camera roll here, and then it'll save it to your camera roll. So those are kind of just some black and white old vintage looks, since some of you guys picked more historical figures for editing. So again, just a quick reminder, on this project, you're going to take 8 photos of similar subject matter to your photographer. You're going to edit 5 of your photos to look like their style, and then upload those 13 photos. I would recommend, again, save 1 or 2 examples of either the subject matter your photographer shot that you're trying to copy, and then like the look that, the edit you wanted to copy. All right, I'm just going to stop the recording.